Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC, where I've got another My Club episode coming for everyone to listen to and enjoy. And hopefully, this is going to be a really interesting episode because we haven't got a big four or big six team. We've actually got, one of the teams which is still in the Prem, but slightly lower down in the Prem. Probably to the dismay of my guests, but they keep going up and down and up and down, and we'll get into that a bit more. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest Tim. So, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Good.
So hopefully for the audio listeners, I will explain. But from that snapshot there, we should hopefully see by the colours on Tim's background, the team that we're going to be talking about today is Crystal Palace. So Tim is a Palace fan, and we're going to find out all the information about what it is to be a Palace supporter, why he supports them, and all that good stuff. So I think I'll just literally get straight into it and start with some of the more fun questions, I'd say. Well, actually, before that, I say fun questions. Let's start with the obvious one first. Like, how long have you supported Palace, or like, why do you support Palace? I think it's always the best one to get a bit of background.
Sure. So, supported Palace for about 14 years now, I'd say. Bit of a strange one, actually. So, my family, not Palace fans. My actual immediate family. So, my mum has supported Manchester United since she was a little girl, and she brought my brother up to also support Manchester United. They watched the United all the time as when I was growing up. I never really enjoyed sitting down and watching football. I tend to spend my childhood running out and playing football and actually being more active, and I didn't find it particularly interesting. So I didn't get into Manchester United. I wasn't interested. But when my sister met her now husband, he was a Crystal Palace fan. His auntie is a season ticket holder for Crystal Palace, and he one time, I don't know whether he had ulterior motives or perhaps he was just trying to keep my sister happy, but he said, "Do you fancy coming and watching Crystal Palace at Selhurst?" And I went, and I from then I didn't look back. It's just it was an incredible moment going to. I mean, live football in general is fantastic, and I think if I went to any team, I'd probably really enjoy it. But kind of walking into the stands at Selhurst Park, especially this must have been when I was kind of 13, 14 at the time, was just incredible, and I've followed them ever since. So yeah, about 14 years, I'd say so, or so now. So,
And that's a really interesting story as well, because we've had so far on the channel a couple of my clubs. There seems to be a lot of like family ties, or one of them was just like, I liked this team and I picked them. But that's interesting because you had like the family thing at the beginning, but it didn't quite hit the mark, and then you kind of, as you said, yeah, probably your your sister's husband trying to impress everyone and take you to him, and then it's kind of reintroduced you, and it kind of ignited that that spark of football in a different way. So I think that's a really interesting like point, that it's that you've come around that way to a team. But that's actually a really nice way, because as you said, live football is such a different beast, and the atmosphere and stuff, it's so easy to get sucked in and fall in love with that team or that game.
Of course, and it was a funny one because my as I say, my mum's, I don't want to say her age, she'll get in trouble, but she's been supporting like United for a long time. My brother, as a kid, he never went to Manchester to actually watch Manchester United at Old Trafford. He watched them all the time on TV, but we're not close to Manchester, so he never went. He goes a lot now. In fact, he goes like almost every game, it feels like. So he has certainly got into the habit of going, actually watching them at Old Trafford, but as a kid he never did. I don't know if I remember if he actually came with us to Selhurst. I think he may have, but obviously at the time he was already watching Manchester United, also already supporting Manchester United. But for me, that really ignited that fire of like, wow, that atmosphere, and just the whole. I mean, it's a day out. It's the entertainment of it. It's traveling up, getting a burger, getting a program, and just experiencing the whole thing. And then I was like, this is incredible, and I've been following them ever since. So yeah.
No, it's amazing. And yeah, that's a fun thing about your brother as well, that he's kind of developed that on, and then he's going a lot more regularly and stuff as well, which a lot of fans do, and especially kind of at an older age. That seems to be the recurring theme on our show as well, because it's whether it's just more interest or funds or whatever it is, but they kind of then go off on their own from where they first got that passion from. But that's really nice. So we'll get into some of the fun ones. So and again, this might be a really interesting listen for a lot of people that maybe aren't so aware of some of the Palace players and stuff. So we're going to talk about it. So the next one I've got down here, which again, lots of these people are like, why have you asked me that? Because it's so hard to narrow down to a single one. But I've put here, you can mention a few if you want, but I've put, do you have a favorite Palace player of all time? Like, who's your favorite player?
So this is actually a tricky situation because, as I say, I haven't supported them since I was kind of 3 or 4, or since I was born. I guess a lot of people say, because Crystal Palace have some incredible club legends. Ian Wright played for us. Southgate played for us. We've had some brilliant footballers, but I'm almost a newer generation because it's only been kind of the last, like, as I say, it must be 13, 14 years or so. So I'm definitely fresher. The obvious is Wilfried Zaha. He is just an incredible football player to watch. When I first started watching Palace, the first few years in particular, going to Selhurst and watching him on one wing, Yannick Bolasie on the other wing, was just incredible. It was so much fun to watch. So Yannick for sure. But Zaha is such a tricky one with him because he's one of these. He's a different. How would you even word it? There's so many players that leave their clubs who will lose the love from their fans.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you go to rivals and stuff like that, or if you behave like Adebayor and decide to celebrate in front of your fans or whatever.
That's a special case, yeah.
It's a special case. And I remember at one point Manchester United bought it.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say this must be fascinating for what you're going to say on this.
Yeah. So this was actually like, and it's something that actually I really love Crystal Palace for, and something that I really admire about our fan base and the club itself. As I say, a lot of people will go, "Oh, you've left our club, you've gone somewhere else." I think there's a weird naivety about people who think that players should stay at their club. Loyalty, unfortunately, nowadays is not very common in football, and especially when you're in a lower league, a lower team in a league. The realization is, if your player does well, he's probably going to move on. And Zaha was one of them. He left and went to Manchester United. It was a strange contract. I don't know if you remember, but basically Fergie bought him. He actually bought him, and he basically loaned him back to us for the rest of the season. That was the season we were actually got promoted into the Premier League. So I think you purchased him in January, but one of the contractual terms was we need to have him to the rest of the league, and then you'll have him back. And that was actually a real shame for me. I waffle, so please jump in if you want to.
No. Yeah, I'm fascinated.
Basically, because as I say, I've got a sweet spot for Manchester United because that's what I was always in my house. And I honestly believe that Wilfried Zaha would have done really well under Alex Ferguson, and it just wasn't to be. Alex Ferguson left, obviously, at the end of the season. David Moyes took over, and basically Zaha didn't get played very much. When he left, his final match was actually in the playoff final for us against Watford. He left with a standing ovation, signs saying, "We wish you all the best." We all genuinely were like, "You've really helped us. You've been a wonderful ambassador for the club, and we wish you the best." He went on to Manchester United, and then we got him back, and we welcomed him with open arms. There was no bad blood. He's a club great. He's a fan favorite, and I've got a lot of love for him. Now there's other people who I really admire and I love watching. As I say, Yannick Bolasie, obviously he left. He went to Everton. He's unfortunately very injury prone. His career didn't go particularly well at Everton, but he was fantastic to watch. There's smaller people. I love watching Mile Jedinak. He was a fantastic player to watch, just a real icon. But I feel like when it comes to a name, when a lot of people, when they think of Crystal Palace, they think of Zaha, and I feel like it's got to be the man.
I mean that's absolutely fair enough. Like I think you've hit some really interesting points there because one, Crystal Palace do have a lot of history with, some incredible talent, some like world-class talent coming through their club at one point, which lots of people don't seem to put two and two together. People always seem to forget, especially older generation players, where they came from. So that's a really nice thing to touch on. The Wilf thing was a really interesting thing to see develop at United because you were like, he was that hot prospect, and since they did the move, you were like, is this going to work out? Is this not going to work out? And as you said, unfortunate circumstances with the manager and stuff, and sometimes these things don't work out, but he was, as you said, welcome back to Palace, and rightly so. He's been an absolute legend and an incredible servant for the club. And I think another point you touched on, which is so like pivotal in today's game. I think that people putting players loyalty with clubs, you don't see players these days like staying at the club their entire like career. It just doesn't happen anymore, and there's lots of different reasons that doesn't happen. But people are, as you said, sometimes quite naive to the fact, thinking it's going to happen, or then holding some really bad blood. I mean, I understand if it's to your, if your bitter rival or something that they've snubbed you for, or something like that, and they might lose a bit of status doing that. But if not, most players these days, 99% of the time, are not going to be staying at one club forever. So, but yeah, I mean, Wolf is undoubtedly a huge talent, and yeah, as you said, most people, as soon as you say Crystal Palace, you're thinking exactly of him. So that's a really good choice. But as you said, there's some great players there like Balassi, and even even some players in your squad now. I think you have lots of underrated players that you hear their name and you're like, oh yeah, they're quality, or they, when they pop up match day, you're like, yeah, but and you see their stats, and you're like, they do great work as well. So you're very well represented in that sense. But like, we can move on. It might be exactly the same answer, and if it is, that's absolutely fine. But would you say that I was going to say, what's your favourite player of this current season? But would it be Wilf as well for the same reasons?
It's a really hard one to talk about, because he technically doesn't play for us. Someone I'm thoroughly enjoying watching this season is Conor Gallagher, who is actually a loanee from Chelsea, and he's becoming my favorite player, and it's heartbreaking, because the sad truth of it is, if he plays really well for us, they're never going to sell him to us. He'll go back. But he's been exceptional, and I think, unfortunately, and it is just how the nature of the game is, but when people don't watch the smaller teams play week in, week out, they don't kind of pick up on those individual talents. But I watch them obviously each week, and he's exceptional. His work rate's brilliant. He's so confident on the ball, and he's becoming a really valued member of the team, and the fans adore him. And as I say, you almost kind of want him to kind of not have a great season, and then we can snatch him. But he's actually doing really, really well. Statistically, when you're looking at stuff like goals, he's not doing crazy, but it's not always a good indication of performance. And he every time he's on the ball, he becomes so important to the team. And genuinely, I hope he stays. It's a tricky one with Chelsea, because they have that business model of they tend to buy a lot of talent, or even through their academy, and they loan them out and loan them out and loan them out. It's a wonderful business model, because if they then play well, they can just go, well, we'll have him back then, and cash in. I don't know if Conor Gallagher is a player who would do well in a top team. I may be only saying that because I don't want him to go. If I'm honest, I don't know how well he'd fit in. It's one of those things. Wilfried Zaha, he's if he ever went to a top team, when you look at the big teams, the teams who are actually fighting for the trophies, Chelsea, your Liverpool's, your Manchester City's, he wouldn't be a first team player. And that's one of the reasons that maybe he is happy at the moment at Palace, even though the media will tell you otherwise and say he wants to leave. He's actually super chilled. You know what the media is like. I feel like Zaha enjoys the fact that he gets a lot of playtime. Conor Gallagher pretty much starts every game, and as I say, if he goes back to Chelsea, would he walk in right now?
Yeah, I mean, if I can cut across 2 seconds, I want to touch on Conor Gallagher as well, because I have a lot to say to him about him as well. But on that, on the Wilfried Zaha situation, do you think there's always seems to be, I hear a lot of rumblings, and sometimes I agree with it and sometimes I don't. Do you think that it's very much he likes to be the big fish in the little pond? So do you think if he went to a bigger team and wouldn't be starting, he wouldn't be as happy for that reason? Or do you think he just would, like, is it a case of he wants to be the star man at the show, or do you think he's not so much egotistical like that, and he'd be more annoyed at the playtime?
So that's a really tough question, because obviously you can't speak on behalf of him. It's such a tricky one, because is he going to be appreciated and adored as much at a big club? When you're, let's say, for example, we're just talking in hypotheticals. Let's say he went somewhere like Liverpool, right? Liverpool arguably have the best player in the world right now in Mohamed Salah.
Yep.
They have some exceptional players. They have some players that I think are overrated, but they also have some brilliant players. Zaha's not going to get the love he does when he is the star of a team like Crystal Palace. He'll probably get some appreciation, but I don't know. I think it's a tricky one, and it goes back to the discussion we just had in regards to do players stay loyal? Is there a reason they go? Unfortunately, people need to look at this in a more nuanced way and think of, if it's your job,
100%.
You've got a short career. What most people retire in their mid-30s if they're lucky. Keepers maybe push on a bit higher. You're trying to make as much money as you can in a really short period of time. I always say the same thing, which is, if somebody says to you, hey, you work as let's say a builder, you can go to this other company, do the exact same thing and get paid twice the amount. You're going to go, okay, bye. It's just the truth of it.
Yeah, of course it is.
The loyalty is a wonderful thing. And I think if you can find a loyal player, that's brilliant. And I think a lot of clubs will then also tweak contracts to try and also reward them for the loyalty. But I just feel like when opportunities come, if Zaha was going to leave, he'd want to go because he wanted to kind of achieve something trophy-wise.
Yeah, I mean, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As you said, the job analogy is something I use myself constantly when we talk about this, because people are like, oh, well, yeah, but, and it's like, yeah, but I literally always say to them, I'm like, okay, so your job literally right now, if you could go somewhere else and get paid X amount more, you would go. But not only that, footballers have to think about, there's a different stage in your career to do certain stuff. It's like some players, they're like, we can use, I'm not trying to talk about other players from other clubs, but I'll quickly mention a name, like Paul Pogba, for example. He's out of contract this summer for Manchester United. He either signs and commits his prime years and basically going to be his last club to Manchester United, or does he take that? Does he want to go play in France? Does he want to go play in Real Madrid? He has that decision to make, because also age is a factor, not only money. So he's got to think what's best for his career, and players do that. So it's a really interesting one. Going back to Conor Gallagher, I spend a lot of my time watching football on the weekends, as you'd expect. So I actually do catch pretty much every Palace match as well, if they're on the right time and not clashing with lots of other people. And he has been a breath of fresh air. Like there seems to be also the crowd consensus as well. There's such a buzz when he gets on the ball, and he's just striving. He's always striving forward, and he's always trying to get into that box, be on the end of that ball that he's going to take a shot. He scored a fair amount of goals for what you'd expect from him, but he does have that, like, at the moment I'd be putting him under Zaha as like your star player, because he really does seem to have that drive for the team, which is so important.
For sure. And just to be completely transparent, when I say he's not getting crazy amount of goals, I mean, if you watch him week in, week out, his conversion rate, exactly that. And that's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. We still adore him. Same thing with Christian Benteke. So he scored 2 goals this season, right? But against Newcastle, he could have scored 5, right? He hit the post. He missed the 1-on-1. He hit the crossbar. His conversion rate isn't there. Unfortunately, when you're supporting a smaller team, and I don't mean in terms of fan base, but I'm talking like, just the stature and the history in terms of winning trophies and stuff like that, we're not going to have an out-and-out goal scorer who scores every chance. For example, with a team like Tottenham Hotspur, right? Harry Kane, or even Son, for example, if they're 1-on-1, I would put money there to score it. I'd be like, that's a goal. As soon as they're 1-on-1, I'm like, that's 1-0. With Benteke, I don't think that. I think he's a fantastic player. I enjoy watching him. He fell off after he left Liverpool, but the club have stuck by him, and actually he's playing quite well this season. He's another one of those players who he gets not enough credit in terms of his off the ball play. A lot of the time he's the front man, and he holds up the ball well, and as I say, inevitably he will score goals, just like Conor Gallagher. The more chances he gets, the more goals he'll score. I'm not a big betting man, but if I ever do put money on, I'm always like Conor Gallagher will get a goal. And as I say, he has a lot of shots. It's only a matter of time until those goals get converted the shots get converted.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah,
Sure.
you've hit everything on the head there. Like, it's exactly right. It's, different. And it is like people need to think of clubs in different tiers for those kind of reasons and stuff. And it's the money that they spend, the caliber of players that they have. And yeah, so yes, he might take more, the conversion rate, sorry, might be slightly less, but he's going to score goals, and there, it's still that kind of thing. But speaking of goals, that's a nice transition. And some people will think this is probably the most difficult question unless you have one in your head ready. So by all means, you might take a second to think about this one. Do you have a favourite goal for your club? And it's really difficult because some people just have a memory that they put to a goal. And for lots of people, it could be like winning something or doing something like promotion or anything like that. But some people just have like their favourite player scoring an outrageous worldie or, all sorts.
There's quite a few actually. I can rattle off a few if you like.
Yeah,
so the ones that aren't as impressive in terms of what the goal was, in terms of how good the shots were. You got the ones where, like in the playoff semi-finals against Brighton, Wilfred Zaha scored 2 goals. They weren't the best goals. They were inside the box. They weren't screamers from a long way out. But in terms of just absolute buzz after the goals went in, how important goals they were, the fact that we were actually at Brighton as well on the second leg and we had to win. I mean, incredible goals that will go down in history for that. You could talk about the fact that Kevin Phillips in the playoff final, it was a penalty.
Yeah,
penalties aren't great, but in terms of like that one penalty got us into the Premier League, and we've been in the Premier League since. So that one definitely sits in my mind. The 2 big goals in terms of how good they were, have to talk about Andros Townsend against Manchester City a couple of years ago.
What a goal.
Beat them 3-2. I believe that actually won goal of the season.
Yeah, I think it did.
Kind of refresh your memory for the people listening. If you don't remember it, basically, we were against Manchester City. They tried to clear the ball with a header, and Andros Townsend hit arguably the best goal of his life. It was a volley, top bins. It was the winning goal that that got us 3-2, and it was absolutely exceptional. Just a goal that any striker would be proud to have, and just incredible. And then the other goal that, funnily enough, this is a bit of a strange one, is a goal I didn't actually see live. This was a long time ago now. This must have been coming on 10 years. It wasn't quite 10 years. I think it was 8 or 9 years. It was a goal against Manchester United. It was Manchester United against Crystal Palace. We were still in the Championship at the time, and it was a League Cup. And it was a 40-yard hit from Darren Ambrose. I remember I was working. I was a young lad working at a supermarket in the evening. And I remember being like, we're against Manchester United. And I remember thinking, and I don't mean to be insulting, but this was back when Manchester United weren't losing 5-0.
I knew Manchester. I was like, why today after the week that I've had? But yeah, go on.
And Manchester, and this is when Manchester United, and they're still a big club in terms of fan base. Obviously, going for a tough time, but this was when they were being, unbelievable. And I remember being like, well, we're against Manchester United. I'll get the score updates. I couldn't take time off work. It wasn't a case of I didn't want to. I couldn't. I was working, and then I looked at the score and we had won. We actually won 1-0, and it took us through. I think that was actually a quarterfinal against you guys. It put us through to the semis, and I remember it. It was a 40-yard screamer from Darren Ambrose. He took the ball, pinged it. The commentator was like, "Well, he's had a go," and it went top corner from 40 yards out. It was absolutely incredible. And I remember thinking, we won? And then getting home and thinking, I've got to watch this, and seeing that goal. And I was like, how?
Even better.
I remember being so gutted about it, because I remember thinking, like, if I could have watched that at a pub, and realistically, when you're a Palace fan, when you go to pubs to watch games, if you do, you're probably going to be outnumbered. There's going to be a lot of United fans and Chelsea fans. If I was at a pub and I could watch that in an atmosphere, or even at, it was actually at Old Trafford as well. If I could have been there, I mean, it would have been incredible. But I remember it was just a sensational goal by Darren Ambrose. That was, I think, like kind of 2011, 2012.
And I do remember both those goals. If you don't know what we're talking about, by all means, go check those clips out on YouTube, because they are both worthy of a stop watching this and click off and watch them for 2 minutes.
For sure,
they are outrageous goals. But yeah, some great ones in there. Like that Townsend one specifically, I just remember so vividly. Like it was, I think it was like fairly early on in the season or like mid-season. Everyone was like, that's probably going to be up there for goal of the season, because it was just so outrageous.
Oh, just genuinely a brilliant goal, and it. I think sometimes as well, there's goals that are fantastic, but they are not. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not important for the game. So the game would have already been won.
Yeah,
it'll be 4-0 and they score a great goal. You're like, oh, well, it's a great goal.
Yeah.
In terms of how important it was, it's not actually that important. It was a great goal, but in terms of that was actually we won 3-2 against Manchester City,
which makes it even
to do
better
it in that manner. Exactly, and that makes it even more beautiful. It's the same thing as when, I think vividly of the Wayne Rooney bicycle kick against Manchester City. To do that against Manchester City, number one, is huge, but to do it in that style, I mean, incredible. And I remember watching that game and thinking, it wasn't even a tap in, it was a bicycle kick, and of course it was against Manchester. But it makes it even more special. It's the icing on the cake. If we won 3-2, I would have still been particularly happy, but to do a volley, that one goal of the season, I'm 90% certain one goal of the season.
I think it did.
Makes it
outrageous.
Special, sure.
I mean, we may have, again, I probably should have asked both these at the same time, because I feel we may have done it as well, but
sure.
We're going to go on to favorite like memory for the club, and it could be literally anything, but we could have mentioned it, I don't know, already in a goal. But do you have a memory that steps out? It could be, I've had people talk to me before, maybe offline, about, first time they stepped out in a stadium, like their home stadium, all sorts, a goal, a game, anything like.
So there's a couple. I'll start with the one that's not as special. You may recall, so this was a couple of years ago now. This was Liverpool were pushing for the title. This was before they actually did win the title, and then in the end, and they were 3-0 up against Crystal Palace with 10 minutes to go. And I was at home. I was watching it with my brother. He was just watching it because I was watching it. And I ordered a pizza, right? I remember it. I remember it as clear as day. And I ordered a pizza. I thought, well, we're getting battered. I'll order a pizza at halftime. And I don't know if you recall, but Liverpool were basically thinking, they were actually, after the third goal, they weren't celebrating. They were actually picking the ball up and going back to the center of the circle, because they wanted the goal difference. They were like, we're 3-0 up. Let's keep going. Yeah. And they were picking the ball up. And the doorbell rang. And I remember it. And I went to the front door. My brother shouted, goal. And I thought, well, that's 4.
Yeah.
And I came back from the door, and it was 3-1. And I was like, oh. And I remember saying to him, that's a consolation goal. Great, consolation goal. At least they didn't get a clean sheet. And then we scored another. And I remember thinking, go on then. Let's do it. And then Dwight Gale scored the third. It was 3-3. It ended up finishing. The game was 3-3. And that was the game that Luis Suarez had to be cradled by Steven Gerrard because he was crying.
Yeah.
Because that was the first.
Lost it. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that was the first trip near the end that really cost them. The second one was quite literally when Steven Gerrard slipped. Was that against Chelsea? I believe it was.
Yeah.
But the first one was they literally choked to 3. It was 10 minutes to go, and they choked to 3-3 lead against us, and we brought it to 3-3. And I still to this day believe that if the game went on for another kind of 10 minutes, we would have won. We had so much momentum behind us that I genuinely, after the third, I was saying, pick up the ball, let's go again. And 10 minutes prior, I was going,
mindset.
I was thinking, well, at least I got a pizza. I thought, at least I got a pizza.
I mean, I was going to also mention the pizza is an important aspect of the story, because there's not much better than seeing you're getting the elation of football you get anyway as your team are getting back into it against, especially against, and you've got a great pizza. I mean, that's quality afternoon.
Sure. But the second one was definitely was more special, and it was actually, I've got the flag behind me now. It's 2013. It was the playoffs. We were in the championship. We actually came 5th that year. And we ended up having to play Brighton. Now, in case people don't understand, Brighton are our rivals. They're our rivals, right? A lot of people don't understand that. Brief history from my understanding of it. And as I say, I'm only kind of 14 years or so being Sport Palace. People don't understand that. Technically, then it's not a derby. Sky Sports is a real problem. Sky Sports, who has sometimes hit the nail on the head, but most of the time they suck. I think they call it the M25 derby or something
Yeah,
stupid. No one calls it that. No one from Brighton calls it that. No one from Palace calls it that. That's not what we call it. It's not a derby. Technically, a derby would be against someone like Charlton or Millwall,
yeah.
but we never play against each other. It's actually a rivalry, but it's a really fierce rivalry. I would say with fair confidence, and I don't like speaking on behalf of other people, but I think from pretty much every Brighton fan or Palace fan, Brighton is the most important game of the season. A lot of fans would take that over a good cup run, just one win, just to take a point against Brighton or vice versa. It's so important. And the rivalry actually comes back to essentially what it was our managers didn't get on well. My understanding of it, and I'm trying my best to get this right, was because this was before this was a long time ago. Essentially what happened was we were against Brighton. They got a penalty. The penalty got disallowed because I think that somebody encroached in the box. It got retaken and it was saved, and they lost because of it. And the Brighton manager came out and basically talked loads of crap about it and was like, this is unacceptable. And from then, the two managers hated each other. Apparently, they had they didn't like each other when they were players. And then when they both became managers, they basically continued that feud. And then it became almost like a club feud. And it basically grew and grew and grew. And it became more and more important to the point where it is literally Brighton is the biggest game of the season for us. I don't care about like playing against City. When you go against City and you're a Palace fan, you're not expecting to get anything. Against Brighton, that is honestly one of the most important games of the season for us. And it is literally because of two managers that didn't like each other. And then because of that, we took it almost personally, and then it became this rivalry. I don't know if you actually know this, but Brighton used to be called the Dolphins, and they actually changed their club mascot to seagulls because we're the Eagles. And they basically, when we were shouting Eagles, were going seagulls back, and ended up changing their crest because of us. And it's basically cemented the rivalry even harder. And we've been rivals since. And the playoff that year, we were against Brighton. It was 0-0 at Selhurst Park. I was there that day. It was one of those games where could have gone either way. Really gritty game against Brighton. It's always a really, really dirty game. It's never dull, even if it's a 0-0. It's a really nasty game. It was 0-0. We went to Brighton for the second leg. And I supported Palace, and as a Palace fan, and it's something that my brother I think struggles with. My brother often actually messages me as a neutral position. I try my best to not be like anyone who's not Palace sucks. It's something that I really dislike about football is the blind support for a team and complete lack of ability to actually kind of look at things in a nuanced perspective. For example, if you're a Man U fan, you couldn't possibly say anything nice about Liverpool. That frustrates me because it's like, I appreciate your loyalty, but you should be able to go, hey, Mohamed Salah is an incredible player, for example. And realistically, my brother messaged me and say, hey, can you give me an honest opinion? Because he doesn't, now he's having such a tough time with United because of Solskjaer, he remembers as a kid, Man U won everything. They were the team. They were exceptional. They won the treble. And they were the number one club. And now he's like, hey, Tim, what's it like? Because as a Palace fan, we don't win stuff. We just don't. I watched Palace in the Championship for a fair few years when I first started watching them. And I even watched us go into administration. That was a whole other ordeal where basically the way the FA works is they go, oh, you're going into administration. We're going to deduct you points. And we started the season with minus 10 points. We scraped through and, the rest is history. We ended up getting promoted to the Premier League. But because of it, I don't have much faith. It's not in a negative, like not in a like a I hate my club, but in more of a we don't expect to win games a lot of the time. Apart from up till recently, but I remember going to Brighton and thinking we're probably not gonna take this. We're at Brighton, I remember just thinking it's just gonna be one of those days where they get a 1-0 at the end, and then that's us done for another year. yeah, it was Wilfred Zaha scored 2 goals to put us through to the final, and that was where the memory starts. My brother-in-law said, "Hey, do you want to go to the playoff final at Wembley?" And I was like, "Yes, of course I do." And we bought 2 tickets. The tickets were up in the top stand where you could barely see who was kicking the ball, and it was a really funny story actually. I don't know, you get those random numbers that message you saying, "Hey, donate 10," or emails or whatever, like not the scammy ones, but like the legit ones that are like if you sign up to a newsletter, and it was like donate to prostate cancer and you could win tickets to a game of your choice. And he entered it, and he got a phone call one day. His name's James. And he answered the phone. He said, "Hello." And they said, "Hi, James, you've actually won tickets." And he had chosen the playoff final as his game. It must have been one of those things where you could choose any team. So it could have been like a big game for Manchester United, but it wasn't. It was a championship. It was a playoff final. And they said, "You won tickets." And he didn't think it was real. He said, "Okay, who is this? Okay,
Yeah,
you joking?" Yeah, exactly that. And they went, "No, we're being serious." And they read off all of his information, and he won. And we won 2 tickets. My brother, who's a United fan, said, "Well, we'll take the other 2 tickets if you want." So he ended up going with his friend, and it was just an incredible day from start to finish. We went to Wembley. We had part of the winning package was you got a tour of Wembley.
Amazing.
I think my brain's not running the greatest at the moment, but basically we couldn't go in the dressing rooms. There was something to do with, it's still not confirmed, but before the final, somebody took a crap in the toilet and basically ruined the dressing room. It was, I want to say it was the semi-final against Brighton. We walked in and the toilets were just ruined, basically. Yeah. And it was like a big thing. Our manager at the time, Ian Holloway, like kicked off and was like, "This is disgusting." And we kind of thought it was like mind games and stuff. Apparently, it's never been confirmed, but it was just a bus driver who had a rough time. But it was never confirmed. But we weren't allowed to go in the dressing rooms because they thought someone was going to do something again. It was like a big game. We got to go on. We got to not touch the pitch too much, but you could stand on there and touch the trophy. You got a backstage tour of everything, and our seats were. We had gone, instead of having these top tier seats, we had these seats. You couldn't have asked for better seats. They were basically the seats. Yeah. It was the seats that are often neglected because they're like
the business ones.
Business ones. And we were sat, it was basically like mid-high, middle of the pitch. It was immaculate seats for this final. Actually, really funny was that Crystal Palace actually have their own cheerleaders. It's something that we have. I've had them for ages. They're called Crystals. They're a classy name. And just by chance, the Crystals were literally in the row behind us. And my brother-in-law said, "There's the Crystals." And I said, "Take a photo and send it to my brother." And I was like, "Do you mind if I take a photo?" And they were really lovely. And they said they took a photo. And I sent them to my brother. And I was like, "Guess who we're sat next to?" And my brother was like, "You piece of this." Like how angry he was. And funnily enough, at half time, he was like, I remember calling him going, "Go on, and let's see if we can find each other." He was like, "I'm the one waving the flag." And I was like, "Everyone's waving flags." That's the worst description. I'm wearing red and blue. Like it was because he borrowed. I think he borrowed a scarf or something to so that he fitted in. And but we ended up seeing him. He was literally his seats were not great. I mean, realistically, even if we were up there, I'm sure we would have had a lovely time. And then obviously the rest was history. It went to extra time. It was like the 113th minute or something crazy. Wilfred Zaha was brought down in the box, and Kevin Phillips walked up and scored the penalty. And I remember it was just the perfect day. I hold that memory for the rest of my life. And I remember, because I'd always seen them lose or draw. It was just that was Palace. That was football. I didn't care that much. I remember taking one of my friends, my friend Andy. He said, "Can I come to Selhurst with you one time?" And we went, and it sucked. I mean, we walked in the slush and the cold. We got on the train. We got there. I think we drew 0-0 against Derby or someone. But when I say it sucked, I meant like the weather sucked and everything else sucked, but you go for the atmosphere and you go for the time of being at the football. And I remember thinking we weren't going to win it. And we walked past, me and my brother-in-law passed. We must have come out of Wembley from our tour amongst the Watford fans, and they were all joking, going, "You're going to get battered." And I remember being like, Yeah, I remember thinking that's because we'd never seen us win anything like properly, and we won it. And I remember the penalty went in, and I don't think I've screamed louder in my life. And the way Wembley's set up is it's a half and half.
Yeah.
And I remember just one half was just
go
bouncing, and the other half
crazy.
was just completely still. And
Yeah.
we ended up winning it. And I remember looking at my brother-in-law and being like, we're in the Premier League. We're
Yeah.
actually in the Premier League, and we've been there since. And yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful memory that I'll hold for the rest of my days for sure.
That's they're two great stories. I didn't. I think that's fascinating, and I'm sure all the listeners will as well. I didn't know about the managers thing between the rivals as well. That's a really interesting and so it literally, the fact that something from two people not getting along all the way through their careers, by the sounds of it, turned into something so major is incredible. Like,
yeah, it was something, and as I say, this was we're talking a long time ago. This wasn't the last kind of 10 years. This was a long time ago, and it was players that didn't like each other. And they had like a genuinely rivalry, little real rivalry between the two of them. Then they became managers, and then the rivalry basically pushed through.
Kicked off again another level.
And then it kicked off again, and then basically the Brighton manager at the time was particularly unsavory about a decision that went against them, and it basically over the years has went boof 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 boof, and it is now honestly one of the biggest. It is arguably the biggest games. I mean, we don't get to cup finals, so it's pretty much our cup final. And last year, for example. And it's a completely different story last year to this year, because last year under Hodgson, I remember thinking that it was a genuine chore. I didn't enjoy watching Palace at all last year. It was awful, like really awful. And we actually won against Brighton. It was in the ninth. It was an extra time at the end. It was like the 93rd minute. Christian Benteke scored a volley. We won 1-0, and I remember just losing my mind. I remember just being like, because we didn't deserve the win. Brighton played better than us by a mile. And as I say, I try and be nuanced about stuff. I know a lot of fans will be like, they didn't deserve it. They didn't do this and all this nonsense. We didn't deserve anything against Brighton. We sucked. They were all over us. And somehow it fell to Benteke and he volleyed it and it went in. And it was incredible. And I remember just being like, there's no way. And I remember after the game, I think Crystal Palace's official Twitter just posted, it was essentially, they just slammed their hand on the keyboard. It was just, the tweet was just like loads of letters and numbers. Yeah. Where they were just like, and that's what they tweeted. That's all they tweeted. And it's because that's the biggest thing.
And it summed up everyone's feelings.
Exactly. I don't think anyone, we didn't deserve anything. We didn't expect anything. And for Benteke to score it, and it was literally the 90-something minute. And then, and obviously Karma then put bits in the bum this season. We were all over Brighton, and they snatched a 90-something minute equaliser. Mope scored, and they didn't deserve it at all, but we didn't deserve it last season. So it's one of those things where you're like, it fucking sucks.
And it's going to be, and they'll have exactly the same elation as it's built up Derby now. But that's football, exactly.
Yeah,
like
football, yeah,
it's those stories. But yeah, that's amazing. And that Wembley day sounds incredible. And you said that might be hard to top, even for the rest of your life. Now that might be the day for football for you.
Honestly, I've been to other finals and stuff with I went my brother with my mum, because they support United. My mum, she has to start getting a bit older and started enjoying football in terms of watching it. I used to love playing football, not watching it. They used to take me to cup finals for Manchester United, so I've been to Community Shields and FA Cups and whatever Man United were going to, and it's great, of course, because you just get involved in the atmosphere and you almost, you essentially back a team, and I was backing United, obviously. But honestly, and Palace, I think fairly comfortably the best. When I say best fans, I mean in terms of atmosphere in the Premier League. I think I forget where the statistic comes from, but the two teams in terms of how it's rated is Palace are the best home fans, and away fans, apparently Manchester United are voted the best away fans. But genuinely, Selhurst is just the most incredible atmosphere, and to have basically half of Wembley bouncing. Even my brother, who had gone to these cup finals and all sorts for United, and had obviously watched them on TV a lot as a kid, he said to me, he was like,
It's
that's
special.
the best atmosphere I've
Yeah.
been in. He just said, and it was a playoff final. I mean, in terms of a United fan, playoff final's not actually that great when you think about it technically. But he said the atmosphere was. He said he's never had an atmosphere like that again since. So
wow, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, that's exactly we've touched on it. It's what football's all about, and it's that atmosphere and getting into it and be part of it. And when the high highs of football are so unmatched in like a feeling that you get, it's crazy. I mean, we've touched on you going to a lot of games, as you just said. So we're gonna just touch on quickly. So like, when was the last match that you went to, and is it something that you go to regularly, or is it a semi-regular thing?
So I used to go kind of 4 or 5 times a season. For me, it's I'm not local, so it's not far, but it's a good hour and a half away. And unfortunately, it's just finances. It's just a tough one. I haven't gone recently. Excuse me. My son was born 3 months ago, so I'm certainly not going to go anytime soon because a day out of the football is I mean, it's going to set you back 100 quid. You know, a ticket to Palace is going to be kind of 35 quid, a train ticket as well. You're going to chuck on another 25, 30 quid. And then it's for me, it's the whole day. It's a day of entertainment. So I'm going to go get a burger. I might get myself a scarf. I might get a program because I am not local to Crystal Palace, but yeah, I used to go kind of 4 or 5 times a season, especially when I was in the Championship, and I kept that tradition going throughout the Premier League, but the last couple of years I haven't gone. So, but I just think it's money wise, and just life gets on top of you in terms of family and social life and work.
Absolutely.
So it's been a bit more difficult, but it is what it is,
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be a recurring theme, which I think is a really interesting one, and hopefully people are picking up on that. And football is expensive to go to, and every guest so far, and I'm sure every guest will from now on, if they do go, like they'll say exactly the same thing. It's a great day out, but it's an expensive day out, and it's time commitments. It's at points in your life that changes. So that's something that people need to take into consideration. The last 3 questions I kind of put into a big melting pot of everything together because I think it's really important. So I'll kind of run through them, and then I'll kind of let you go ahead with it. So I'll run through them. So the 3 questions are: where do you see yourself? Where do you see the club in kind of 5 or 10 years' time? So it's just really interesting answers with that. And then we kind of get to the end. So after you've kind of talk about where you think you'll realistically be, then we'll kind of go into any kind of good or positives or negatives that you might have about your club, whether that's like owners, fans, managers, any like issues or positives. And then we kind of will wrap up at the end with anything you want to say to your fellow fans. So I mean, we'll start on the 5 or 10 years, but I like to ask them all together because some of them kind of mold their way into the other answers.
If you'd asked me last season, last season for me was one of the worst seasons as a Palace fan in terms of just the football was bland. Roy Hodgson, there's a brand of football manager that's been around for a long time, and they don't give entertaining football, exciting football. It's just like grind out a result will keep you in the league. And in theory, that's lovely, but when you have genuine talent and people that you think actually they can play some really good football and you end up playing bland defensive football, it's frustrating. We snatched a lot of points that we didn't deserve last year, is the truth of it. We had games where we should have drawn, where we snatched a win. There's games we should have lost where we snatched a draw. And I genuinely believed, and I told a lot of people that I thought we'd be relegated this season. There's unfortunately with the Premier League, you're playing against the best players, a lot of the best players in the world. In my opinion, the best league in the world. We might not have the Mbappes and such, but we have a lot of incredible players in the Premier League, and we have the most competitive league in the world.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is, and I know that you're getting different people winning different leagues like La Liga. Funny enough, I tweeted out the other day. So PSG actually lost to a team the other day. I don't even know the name of the team, some French team. I don't even recognize the name. And they're still 6 points clear this early on in the season. It's boring. It's not entertaining. in the Premier League, when a small team can beat a big team and cause an upset, and at the moment, I still don't know who is going to win the league. I think it's going to be Chelsea, but Liverpool look exceptional. And if City have the manpower, realistically, it's open. I think you have to have a level of consistency. And the problem is, at some point, the luck runs out. You can have a season, maybe even two, where you can scrape results that you don't really deserve, but eventually it catches up with you. And we've had seasons where we finished close. I remember there was a season a few years back where it came down to the last game of the season and we won like 4-0 or something ridiculous. Like we had to win, and I was just like, oh, no, I think we had to draw. I forget who it was against. But I remember we had to get at least a point, and we ended up battering them. It was like we don't win games by much. So I was remember being like, that's strange, but we'll take it. And it was the last game of the season it came down to. And eventually the luck runs out. And I remember thinking, we are very, very fortunate. We were safe. And if you look at the table, we won on the line, but there were a lot of results where I thought we've snatched points here. And then Patrick Vieira came in. And I'll be completely honest. I'm one of the skeptics. I was one of the skeptics.
Yeah.
He is not really a tested manager.
Same opinion I think that I have. And lots of people have about him. He seems to have been very untested and not had the best results at all the clubs. So people are like, is this just going to be a short-term thing? And yeah,
it's I would love to profess to say that I know how his record, everything went, but I didn't watch their games. I know that he was a manager in, I think, La Liga, not La Liga, the MLS, sorry, which, I mean, it's not a league that I'm going to be like, oh, well, he's definitely done well in the MLS. He's going to do well in the Prem. Like, it's not good. And unfortunately, we're in this stage now where there's a lot of managers who are ex-players who are getting the role because of their history, who don't really deserve it. Patrick Vieira, fantastic football player. Could he be a manager? Solskjaer, he was a legend for Manchester United. In my opinion, as a Palace fan, I think you need to get rid of him. I feel like there's this nostalgia with Solskjaer, and they're like, we'll back him. And I respect them saying, we're going to back a manager. At some point, you got to cut your losses. And you've got to go, well, we tried. Thanks for your time. Here's a big paycheck. Sod off. Same thing with Zinedine Zidane. I don't know if it's a controversial opinion, but people were like, he did well at Real Madrid. He was the manager of Real Madrid. They're going to do well regardless of who the hell is in charge. They know how to kick a ball. So when he took charge, I was like, I don't know if I'm like, they're like, he won trophies. With all due respect, I could go into the training ground and go, kick that ball. They'd go, okay. And we probably would have done all right. You know, obviously being a little bit silly about it, but I feel like you have to be tested as a manager to walk into a Real Madrid team that's already exceptional and be like, I won them trophies. You didn't really, did you? And Patrick Vieira was one of them, ex-football player that played really well and started trying to do a role as a manager. And as I say, I know a lot of people, and I completely understand it, don't watch the smaller teams. And if you look at the results for Palace, you would think that we're having a terrible season. If you looked on social media, you would be genuinely perplexed if you don't follow Palace with the reaction they gained.
The last two games.
We have had, I can think of three just off the top of my head. Right, and we dominated them. It was like the 90-something minute. The ball bounced over our defender. Mopé went on and scored. That was particularly sore for me. First of all, it's because of Brighton, but also the punditry was really poor, in my opinion. The reason I think it was poor was we dominated the entire game, and they interviewed, obviously Brighton are having a fantastic season, right? And they interviewed Mopé going, incredible, your season continues, this. And they basically celebrate. They were talking to him like, you've just battered another team. They were like, they got a draw and they didn't deserve anything. And they interviewed him going, this is incredible. You did amazing. No, you didn't. You played really badly. You didn't deserve anything, but you got a point. And that was a small pet hate for me. Leicester, a lot of people wouldn't have followed that game. We drew 2-2 in the end. We were all over Leicester. Leicester didn't deserve anything. And when I said they might have deserved a goal, we deserved 3 points. And as I say, I try to look at things in a nuanced way. I try and look at it and go, okay, let's be fair about it. And we deserved it. We were 2-0 down at half time. if you watch the goals, both of them were defender mistakes. It was through balls that a player stuck his leg out but missed the ball and they ran on and scored. It was silly, silly goals to concede. And we came our second half, we ended up drawing 2-2. We deserved all 3 points. We were exceptional. Once again, social media, Leicester getting points, they're valuable points, good performance. No, it wasn't. If you actually watched the game, you were very poor. You didn't deserve the points. That's just my opinion on it. And Newcastle, we were all over Newcastle. We played exceptionally well. Once again, didn't get the points we deserved. And you know what? That's so refreshing. It sounds so funny. And you'll look on social media, and as people, especially if people are like the Liverpool fans, probably won't actually understand it. When you support a team that's genuinely not the best in terms of like cups and stuff like that, we don't get that kind of stuff. When you go from a season of thinking this is kind of the stepping stone towards the end of our time in the Premier League for a while. That's how it genuinely felt for me. I came into the new season very pessimistically. We're drawing games that we should win, but to have a feeling of we should have won that game. We went in against Arsenal, the match against Arsenal. I was thinking we're going to win this. And you know what? That's so refreshing, because 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, 4 seasons ago, we'd go up against Arsenal and I'd be like, Arsenal, once again, not having a great time, but we'd go up against big teams and I'd be like, well, that's a loss. I'm basically just right off the game like this. Let's see what we can get. And we might, as I say, we get those upsets. We come back to 3-1 against Liverpool. We win 3-2 against City. We've beaten United a couple of times. But it's refreshing that instead of going away going, oh, damn, we dropped points against Arsenal, we're actually saying like, why didn't we win that? It's almost like we're feeling like it's almost like my brother used to be like when United used to lose, we should have been winning that. We should have been winning that.
Yeah.
As a Palace fan, we never get that feeling. And it's 100% frustrating. It's very frustrating. You sit there and you're like, close out the game. If you look at I would love to see the statistics. I would love to see the statistics of points dropped late on in the game.
It's like 5
minutes.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing joke with my partner. I said to her against the Brighton game, I said, I put money that we concede right at the last minute, because that's what Palace do. It is our trademark. Come against Palace, we fall asleep at they've already gone. They've already in the changing rooms. They're getting ready to go home.
Yeah.
Every game it feels like, and what happened? We conceded. And I said to Sam, I was like, we just 2 sloppy goals. I was like, we reckon we can get 2. We got 2. And I was like, great. But up against Newcastle, I was like, I bet we're gonna choke it. We choked it. And same with Arsenal. I was like, we're gonna choke it.
Yeah.
That's what Palace do.
Yeah.
We lost points the last. We've actually dropped. I think I worked out we've dropped like 9 or 10 points from winning positions in like the last 5 minutes of games, and it is concerning because realistically, there's times where it comes down to the last game of the season. Are we going to regret
dropping points,
taking those points? But it's so refreshing. It's refreshing to come out of games thinking we deserved it, as opposed to last season where I was like, what are we doing? Why are we playing like this? I don't want to watch the next game. Who's the next game? Oh, it's United. Oh, well, that's another crap game.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely going into games thinking we can snatch that point. We'll get a win here. We deserve, off of form, we deserve genuinely to be comfortably in the top half of the table, really, really doing well. And it's brilliant. It sounds so funny because we're losing points the last minute. I'm sure if I was a Liverpool fan or a City fan, we were constantly dropping points in like the 95th minute. It would be frustrating. And it is frustrating. But I'm there like, but we almost won it.
The change,
and we played well.
It's the hope and the optimism, isn't it? And that's such a, makes such a difference to go into a game with that feeling rather than, we lost.
Genuinely. And we've got some wonderful players. And that's one of the things that we hate. I hate's a strong word. I disliked about Hodgson being in charge. When you got players like Zaha, now with Zaha, people who don't watch Palace enough genuinely think he's this diving horrible person. He's actually genuinely doesn't dive that much. Of course, I'm biased, so I'm sure there's a bit of me that's like, he doesn't dive. 100% he dives every so often. Everyone does. So does Mohamed Salah. So does Bruno Fernandes. Every team has a player that, unfortunately, the sad truth is when it comes to diving, is referees don't give you it if you stay on your feet. Absolutely. That's the truth of it. Yeah. I watched Manchester City the other day. I genuinely enjoy watching Manchester City. The football is so clean, so beautiful. I enjoy watching Manchester City. Even as a Palace fan, I'm like, I enjoy it's good football. I'm a fan of football. I love football. And I remember watching Manchester City. Phil Foden, in my opinion, is incredible. And yeah, if he keeps going this rate, he's going to be world class. I mean, he's almost there at the moment. He's so good. And he got 100% fouled in the box.
And he didn't.
He basically stood on his feet and he didn't go down. And I was like, you went down then, you would have got a penalty.
Yeah, even the commentators are saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to. And that sucks. And it's a real problem with the game. But the truth is, realistically, when Zaha gets fouled and other players, you have to go down. And obviously, I don't condone actual diving. I think it's disgusting. But if you actually watch Zaha properly and you actually are genuinely honest with yourself, I think people would find it exceptionally hard to find even a handful of incidents since our Premier League time recently of Zaha actually diving with no contact going down, genuinely. And of course, I'm a Palace fan. I'm a fan of Zaha. But he's genuinely a fantastic player, and the confidence he has. When we were playing in the Championship, basically Balassi was playing one wing, Zaha was playing the other wing. Teams could not handle Palace because what they used to do, and what they do at the moment in the Premier League a lot of the time, is they will two-man mark Wilfried Zaha, for example. They're like, we'll put two people on him, or we'll basically block him out and nothing can happen. When there was Balassi on one side, and Balassi was brilliant for us as well, he couldn't do it. And it was so entertaining to watch. And you know what? People love that. They love that exciting part of football. When I'm at Selhurst and Zaha tries to step over and he loses the ball, don't get me wrong, the fans are like, come on, like, what are you doing? And they get angry. I'll tell you what, when he goes around someone, you've never heard a roar in your life. And that's the whole point of football. It's so good. And I love it. And Zaha is exceptional. And when you make him play boring football, it's not fun to watch. You've got Zaha. Gallagher looks brilliant. We've got Elise, who's just come in. The fans love him. He's playing really well. We've got Edouard, who came in from, I think it was Celtic. As well. Yeah. Looking brilliantly on his debut, scoring 2 goals. He came on. It was the second touch of the game. The ball came in. He touched it once, banged it in.
He just looked so clinical, and I was like, "This could be such a change." Yeah,
so good. We have Eze, who's coming back from an injury. Once again, just genuinely confident, like positive football. One thing that frustrated me, and it was frustrating me with players, teams like Arsenal, when they try and pass the ball into the back of the net. It's like, someone have a go, make it fun, make it enjoyable to watch. There was a few seasons. I'm going to start rambling off here, so bear with me on this one. I remember watching Manchester United. You had Memphis Depay, right? Depay, I don't know how you say his name, Depay. Yeah. And I remember watching you. I don't remember what the team it was, and no one would shoot, and it was infuriating.
It was Van Gaal times.
Oh, honestly. And Depay got the ball on the edge of the box, pinged it, scored. And that's what you needed, that player to have that positive atmosphere. Instead of passing the ball back, going, right, I'm going to take the ball by the horns and just go for it. And he ended up scoring 2 goals for you that game. I'm being like, that's what you need. Someone has that confidence to have a go. A bit like with Arsenal when they tried to pass the ball in the back of the net. You needed a Santi Cazorla to go, I've got the ball now, I'm having a go.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason that the fans shout, shoot, because they're like, have a go. Like, just go for it. Because I tell you what, you don't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket. And if you don't have a go, you're never going to score those goals. And the fans freaking love it. And when you have these incredibly talented, just brilliant players who want to play attacking football, you want to see it. And honestly, if you asked me last season, I would have said we're going to be in the Championship. We'll get relegated. I don't know what's going to happen. This is the honeymoon period. That's the truth of it. Patrick Vieira might fall apart. We don't know what's going to happen. But right now, I'm enjoying the football and I'm feeling positive. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to ever challenge for titles. Unfortunately, without being cynical, the league, it's not going to really work like that because there's so much money and there's so much talent. And
unless you're getting some crazy investment.
Yeah. And realistically, I've got an unpopular opinion about the whole Leicester situation. Incredible that they won. Incredible. And they deserve to win. But it will never happen again in my lifetime. And the reason it won't is it was the perfect storm for Leicester.
100%. 100%.
It was every other team sucked.
Out. Yeah.
Every other team was just inconsistent and they were just winning 1-0 on counter-attack. The amount of 1-0s they scored, just Mahrez and Vardy, beautiful partnership. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0.
Well, that's the sign of champions though, isn't it? Getting a 1-0 win. Yeah.
It's just those grinding out those wins. It won't happen again.
Yeah.
And And well, I don't think it will anyway. I just can't see it
I
happening.
don't either, because it was the top teams that were just so
Oh
abysmally poor. They're never going to have that defensive record drop
no,
that many points. Like, it just was
exactly that. And you know, I don't think as a Palace fan we're gonna be challenging for the title. But I feel like we'll have a better foothold in the if we continue this way in the Premier League.
Build on top of that positivity that you've got going.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And maybe you know, maybe have a some kind of cup run. That'd be kind of cool. But as I say, I'm just enjoying the football. It's a pleasure to watch. It is infuriating to lose points at the last minute, but it's great football to watch, and I'm gonna enjoy it. And I think in the next kind of 5 years, I hope if we continue, will become more cemented in as opposed to thinking negatively like I did last year. So.
And you know what? That's a perfect answer, because I think I try to be very like you, and I obviously get a bit of bias, but I try to be a realistic about football and results and other teams, all that kind of stuff. And I think, as you said, like, you can just be hopefully optimistic. The football's getting better. You don't know if Vieira is going to be there for even the end of this season or seasons going on. You don't know, but currently you're like, let's see us push on, and that's what you can hope. And as you said, you just want to keep enjoying the football.
For sure, and I think that's something that they often bring up. I hear it on talk shows a lot, on stuff like 606 or something like that. Those shows where they say, where fans call up, and I think it's genuinely the hosts being out of touch, and they say, would you rather be in the Premier League or lose but play exciting football? And most of them are like, exciting football, it's entertainment. I think there's a genuine disconnect, because a lot of the hosts are ex-football players, right? That's, you know, a lot of them are. That's they've got experience. That's why they're in the position. They forget that most people who watch football, it's their passion in life, and it's where they put their hard-earned cash. They work hard. They get a bit of money. They might buy a season ticket. They might be able to go to the game. And when you spend your hard-earned cash doing a job that a lot of people do, jobs that they just to try and help them pay the bills and keep things going, people want to watch entertaining football. They don't want to come away being like, wow, 1-0, but that was really boring. They would rather their team threw everything at the kitchen sink and then they choke it, because they have the entertainment. It's an entertainment game. I know that in terms of management, they think it's probably a money game, and I'm sure, I mean, realistically, there's a lot of money in football, but for the fans and for the people who spend their cash, they want a good time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great answer. I mean, and the last one, so I kind of, we touched on this and wrap it into kind of two questions. Is there, like, I like to get some kind of positives and negative, and lots of people, it's based either around like the ownership or the fans or anything like that. But is there anything that you kind of don't like about your club as like the first half of it, and then kind of ending on a more positive spin potentially, or negative? It absolutely can go both ways. It's completely up to you. Do you have anything on the back of it to say to your fellow fans, or about being a Palace fan?
You know what? Like, that's such a tricky one, because as I say, last season it would have definitely been, I would have had for sure negatives. I genuinely can't think of a negative right now.
But I mean, that's incredible if you can't.
And I'm sure there's probably going to be one where I message you after and be like, I wish I'd said that. But I love watching football, and it's so refreshing to have the football we have. And I can't think of a negative. I genuinely.
I'm
sure
happy for an answer, because I
but...
think you might be the only person that might come on here, which is a good thing to end on a positive note, because we've got so many people that will have a go at their fan base. We've got so many people that have a go at their ownership and stuff like that. But if you know, you are on the up and up, you've got a new manager, you're playing more exciting football, and there's a bit more harmony at the moment, then why not? Everything's positive, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so going on to the positives, to just tie in what you're saying. So, a lot of people don't have the luxury that I think as Palace fans have, and I'm sure there's people who disagree with me as Palace fans, but we have owners that love the club, and the fans reciprocate it. It's a bit like if people don't follow Palace, for an example, for people who don't follow Palace, I don't know if you remember recently, Leicester did well in a cup run, and I'm gonna probably butcher this, but it was the owner of Leicester died in a helicopter crash, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the son,
it was the Yeah, the cup against
Sorry,
City, wasn't it? Yeah, the game when
yeah,
he went and celebrated. Yeah,
and it's lovely to have exactly that. It's lovely to have an owner that or someone in charge that loves the club and isn't just using it as a cash cow. It's and a lot of people don't have that luxury. Until recently, Newcastle. I can't imagine being a Newcastle fan and having an owner who, I don't know how PG you want this podcast, but
you can say what you want.
Just a nasty bloke in charge of their club. And at the time they had a manager like Steve Bruce. He's somebody who I'd put in the category of they're a manager and they're not going to get you good results.
Yeah,
there's a results manager. There's a breed of them. It's your Sam Allardyce's, your Roy Hodgson was one of them at the time. Steve Bruce. These managers where you think, stop giving these people jobs. But unfortunately, a lot of these clubs go, well, this money, stay in the Premier League, we'll hire that person as a manager. That's just the nature of the game, really. But it's frustrating as a fan. Same thing with Tottenham. I don't know loads about Tottenham, but I know it's a city source, but you watch things like the documentary on Tottenham, the I forget what it's called now. Who Dares Win or something. I can't remember what it was. Really enjoyable to watch. I really enjoy those kind of documentaries because you get to see that bit of backstage was I'm looking for. I watched the one for Sunderland as well. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to see what happens
all
backstage.
Or nothing, is it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. And realistically, you realize that Daniel Levy is he doesn't really care about Tottenham. It's just a business, and that's the truth of it. And and I'm going to run down a tangent here. Realistically, Mauricio Pochettino did not get enough credit as a Tottenham manager. I'm sure a lot of people, most of the credit came from people who weren't Tottenham fans. I think inside Tottenham, and I understand why. They wanted to see the teams do well, and they were like, okay, we're not getting anywhere. But with the team he had and with the budget he had, he actually did bloody well. And to get them into a Champions League final and get them to the point where they were really challenging was incredible. And I think unfortunately Daniel Levy chucked him to one side, and now look at them. We beat him 3-0 this season, and it was comfortable. And we're very fortunate. So I don't know if for people listening as well. So with Palace, really recently, it was kind of 10, 11 years ago now. Palace was about to go under. We were similar to recently. Was it Bury FC that it collapsed? I think it was Bury that collapsed, and basically that's it. That club's over. It's a really sad time when people's local football club or whatever gets taken over, and it gets sold out and the assets are stripped. And Palace basically went into administration. I think it was Barclays. No, I think it was Lloyd's. Right, it was one of the banks basically. Had control of our assets, and it was actually a group of Palace fans, wealthy Palace fans, not wealthy in terms of Saudi Arabian Newcastle owners, but wealthy in terms of they had a bit of capital, and they basically put the money in, and they rescued us literally in the jaws of defeat. And I remember Palace fans literally outside Lloyd's Bank, basically holding up signs, begging them to basically discount because they were asking for too much for the price. And basically, if no one bought it, they were just going to sell it off and, destroy the stands and all that stuff. And that would be it for Palace. And it was Steve Parish and 3 other gentlemen who were actually Palace fans. And if you haven't watched it, and I implore you to go and watch it, there's actually a documentary on Netflix, I think it is. No, Amazon. I think it's Amazon, sorry. So many of them nowadays. Where you can actually watch the whole process of the rebirth of the club. I think a lot of people who are neutrals have taken a lot of interest in that, and they said it's really good, so it's worth a watch. And basically, the club was going to go under. It was going to go, and it was literally, it came down to like the last 24 hours or something ridiculous. And Steve Parish and another few gentlemen came together and went, "What can we get? What can we get?" And the bank did discount it. I wouldn't, as I say, my brain doesn't work very well at the moment. I apologize. I'm not getting very much sleep because I've got my newborn around, but it was something crazy. Like they wanted 10 million, which nowadays is nothing. But they went 10 million and they ended up coming right down and sold it for like 3 million or something. They were like, this is all we've got. And they actually sold it. So fair play to them. And it kept the club going. And but because of that, you've got people in charge that actually really adore the club and a part of the club, and they didn't just go, oh well, I will buy Crystal Palace and we'll make some money. They actually bought it because they didn't want to see their club that they loved and adored to go under. And it means you've got owners that genuinely really, really adore the club, which
Must be nice.
Honestly, it feels really good. And yeah, I feel stupid saying it to you because your owners
the people that have the worst.
Well. Yeah. Yep. I was going to say your owners suck as well, but unfortunately for you as well, though, Manchester United now. Manchester United aren't the biggest in terms of success at the moment, but in terms of worldwide, Man United is still probably the biggest club in the world.
It's the top two. It's either us or Madrid.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, your owners are like, this is a cash grab. That's what it is. They use the money to get clear off their own debts and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not touching it too much, but yeah, they literally use the money. Like, I was watching a really interesting thing, and it actually made me sick and sad at the same time of how much money they basically. We were on at a certain time we were earning a certain amount of money per season, and it was a really decent amount of money, and we just kept on going profit. And then as soon as they came in, it was like the amount of money that we've paid off on their debts and hardly paid any of the loan, like the debt back, is outrageous. It's all just interest, and they just siphon the money into other things. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. We're talking about a Palace here. But is there anything else? I mean, like, there's the last bit. Like, is there anything you want to say to not only just like Palace fans, but is there anything you want to say to anybody watching that might be, I say, interested in being a Palace fan? That could be a possibility. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, fans out there, or just anyone interested in your club, is there any kind of last thoughts you want to sum up about?
Yeah, I mean, so just to go back to the things that were positive. I mean, because there's loads, and you know what? It's so funny because if you look at Selhurst Park, the stadium in comparison to others is actually really poor. But you know what? It's just wonderful. It's so funny. I normally would, when I go to see Palace, I'll get the train or I'll drive and I'll park at my brother-in-law's auntie's house because she lives in Croydon, and we walk over, and you literally, I mean, unless you go, it's so funny. You literally walk up a hill. It's just houses everywhere. You're like, where's the stadium? And as you come over the hill, this stadium is just there, and it's this stadium that's like, there was a new section, like new sections have been added here, and it's like we've got a Sainsbury's in the corner where Sainsbury's basically own like under the terraces of one part.
That's amazing.
I mean, and I'm being 100% serious. There's a Sainsbury's, and people on game day will go buy a sandwich there if they don't want to buy a burger. But Sainsbury's literally have their own shop there because it's like an old tatty. It's like it honestly reminds me a bit like a patchwork quilt of just like there's little bits here that have been added and little bits here that's changed. But it's, you know what, it's just exceptional. And we're not the biggest club, but as I say, I think it was something like for years now we've been rated the best home fans in terms of atmosphere. You go to Arsenal, the atmosphere's not there. You go to City, the atmosphere's not there. With Selhurst, it's electric, and the commentators and the pundits, they always pick up on that, and rightly so. And you've got we're the only team in the league who have the ultras, which Palace, a lot of people know about the ultras, who I adore. I think are brilliant, and I know a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, for me, it's a frustration. It's a frustration when people are like, oh, look how silly they are. Look at this. If people are passionate and enjoying themselves, like, move on. Let people do what they want to do. Absolutely. And I tell you what, it's a group of fans that are passionate. They come in, and I think there's a guy who comes in with like a drum and stuff. People are like, look at them bringing instruments. Atmosphere is incredible. Everyone loves them in the stands.
And they're making that atmosphere, making that club, and making everything better for their club. Yeah.
They're the ones who make the banners. I know there's a controversial banner that's happened recently. There's banners not like that, like proper big banners that they put up along the terraces all the time that they make and they produce that really just add that real character, and it becomes a genuine atmosphere. We don't have the biggest stadium. We certainly don't have the best stadium, but the atmosphere is incredible in just this little pocket of a housing area in Croydon, and it's exceptional. The fans are brilliant. The atmosphere is exceptional. the board are people who genuinely adore the club and love the club, and I've got a lot of time for that. In terms of giving back to community, I know there's probably loads of things that other teams do, but Palace always support the local community in Croydon and in South London, and every year there's a Palace walk for life, I think it's called, which is like you walk the length of the marathon, and they raise money for local community, which is just a wonderful way of being integrated into that part of society. And as I'm sure, as I say, other clubs I'm sure will be getting involved, but it's something that you're really proud of. And Eddie Izzard, for example, the comedian's a Palace fan, and he gets involved every year, and he goes down. And honestly, it's so funny, the different fans and the different behaviors and the different feelings that you have towards your club. And as I say, I remember as a kid, and he'll hate me for saying this, but as I remember as a kid, my brother saw United win everything. It was the dream era. That incredible. And I remember one time they lost to Newcastle, and my brother ripped up all his posters for Man United, and because he was so angry, because he was a kid. I mean, the kids do things, but I remember that because he had never seen him lose like that, and for him it hurt. With Palace, we don't expect we're going to win, and I'll tell you what, when we do, I mean, it's just beautiful. And hopefully when my son's a bit older, I can take him to that, and it will be a really special moment. But I can't think of anything that I find is particularly negative. And I'm sure there are fans. It's probably because I'm not your kind of generic.
Yeah, but again, I'm not looking for people to pull negatives where there isn't. And if that's the feeling around the club, and they've got this special connection with the fans from the ownership down, and everything's working, that's absolutely fine. I like to open it up for negative criticism, because it's important to do that both ways as well. And I know some people, especially like my club, for example, I could spend hours talking about the negatives, but you got to air that out there if you have it. But like, by the sounds of it, Palace are in a really good place, and it's a great time to be a Palace fan, and you're all having an absolute blast at the moment. So that's amazing to hear.
Honestly, it feels brilliant, because we don't get it sounds negative. I don't mean it as pessimistic. We don't get much, as Palace fans, you don't get much joy in a lot. For recent years, it's been pretty poor. In fact, last year I really didn't enjoy it. I still supported them. You stick by them. I stuck by them, and I'm sure we're going to have worse times and we're going to have better times. But at the moment, in this current time,
that's a football fan, isn't it? And you stick with them thick and thin, and you enjoy the highs, and you take the lows as best you can.
Of course you can. Of course you do. And right now, yeah. And I'm sure there's people who, even for Palace, it will be like, this really annoys me. But as a fan myself,
Yeah, exactly. And by all means, if Palace fellow Palace fans, or anyone that's just questioning stuff, obviously leave comments down below. I know Tim's very active on YouTube and social as well, so you can put some comments down below. I'm sure he'll answer any questions that you've got, or if you've got some negatives, point it out, and we'll get involved in the comments and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's really all I've got in terms of questions. I think there's been some absolutely fascinating stories. I loved having you on to hear about them and get a perspective from a really positive sounding place. So that's amazing. So I want to start off by thanking you for coming on. It's been a great episode.
No, I really enjoyed it. It's been good fun, and I've been enjoying the other episodes you've done so far, and it's nice to see the different fans and different perspectives. So I look forward to watching the other ones as well, for sure.
Thank you very much. And yeah, absolutely. We're going to have, hopefully every week, we're going to try and have on towards the end of the week on a Friday. Normally we're going to have more episodes of My Club coming out. So if you have been enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and then hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we put a video out. And if you like me and miss when your favorite channels upload and stuff, and by all means leave a comment down below, and we'd love to get involved. But yeah, that's really it. I think that's been such a good episode, and actually it's been such a high positive episode, and I love that it's been such a fun episode. So I really hope that everyone's enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all for the next episode very, very soon. Thanks very much.